Admiral Vexithara stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion, his four eyes gleaming with satisfaction as he gazed upon the small blue planet below. Earth, the humans called it. Such a primitive name for such an unremarkable world. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 47 star systems for the Galactic Empire. "Sir, initial scans show a Type 3 civilization," reported his intelligence officer, an insectoid creature whose mandibles clicked nervously. "They have achieved basic spaceflight but lack any significant military vessels. Their largest ships barely reach their own moon." Vexithara's laugh rumbled through the bridge like distant thunder. The other officers joined in, their various alien sounds creating a chorus of mockery. These humans were even more pathetic than the Zalarians, who at least had energy shields when the Empire arrived. "And their military capabilities?" he asked, though he already knew the answer would amuse him. "Primitive kinetic weapons, sir. They still use chemical propellants and metal projectiles. No energy weapons, no plasma cannons, no particle beams. They fight with bullets, sir." The officer's tone suggested he could barely believe such backward technology still existed. The bridge erupted in laughter again. Bullets! These creatures were still throwing pieces of metal at each other like cavemen hurling rocks. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. They're requesting to speak with our commanding officer." "Put them through," Vexithara said, straightening his ceremonial armor. "Let's see what these primitives have to say." The main screen flickered to life, showing a human male in what appeared to be their military dress uniform. He was older, with gray hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of many years. Behind him stood several other humans in similar attire. "I am General Marcus Harrison, representing the United Earth Defense Council," the human said. His voice was steady, showing no fear despite the massive fleet hovering above his world. "We know why you're here. We've been monitoring your communications since you entered our solar system." Vexithara was mildly impressed. These humans had at least managed to decode their basic transmissions. Still primitive, but not completely hopeless. "Then you know that resistance is futile," Vexithara replied. "Your world will be incorporated into the Galactic Empire. Your people will serve as workers in our mining colonies. Surrender now, and we will make the transition swift." General Harrison's expression didn't change. "We've reviewed the histories of the worlds you've conquered. We know what swift transition means to your empire. We decline your offer." The Admiral's amusement grew. These humans actually thought they could resist the Empire's might. "General Harrison, you seem like a reasonable being. Let me explain your situation. We have 500 warships in orbit around your planet. Each one carries weapons that could glass your entire continents. Our infantry is equipped with energy shields that your primitive bullets cannot penetrate. Our soldiers wear armor that has withstood plasma fire from civilizations far more advanced than yours." He gestured to his tactical display. "We have conquered worlds with technology centuries ahead of yours. We have defeated species that could manipulate gravity itself. What exactly do you think your little metal projectiles can accomplish against us?" General Harrison nodded slowly. "You're right, Admiral. Our technology is primitive compared to yours. Our weapons are simple. Our ships are barely capable of reaching our own moon." He paused, and for a moment something flickered in his eyes. "But you've made one critical error in your assessment. And what might that be?" Vexithara asked, his tone dripping with condescension. "You've studied our technology, but you haven't studied us," Harrison replied. "You see bullets and think primitive weapons. You see our small ships and think backward civilization. But you haven't looked at what we've accomplished with these primitive tools." The general stepped aside, and the camera panned to show a large display screen behind him. Images began cycling through, vast cities, massive engineering projects, and then something that made several alien officers on Vexithara's bridge shift uncomfortably. Battlefields, hundreds of them, from throughout human history. Images of humans fighting in every conceivable environment. Frozen tundras, burning deserts, dense jungles, urban ruins. Always with those same primitive weapons, always against seemingly impossible odds. For thousands of years, Admiral, we've been perfecting the art of war with these primitive weapons. We've fought each other across every terrain our world offers. We've learned to kill with precision from distances your energy weapons can't match. We've mastered the art of remaining hidden while dealing death from the shadows. More images flashed by. Snipers in camouflaged positions that were nearly invisible, even when you knew where to look. Special forces operators moving through hostile territory like ghosts. Hunters tracking dangerous predators through terrain that would challenge any creature in the galaxy. You see, Admiral, Harrison continued, while other civilizations were developing energy weapons and shields, we were learning patience. While they built bigger ships and more destructive cannons, we were mastering the ability to kill an enemy from 2 kilometers away with a single, precisely placed shot. Vexithara's laughter had died away. Something about the human's calm confidence was beginning to unsettle him. Your energy shields are impressive, Harrison acknowledged, but they're designed to stop energy weapons and explosive devices. They've never been tested against a high-velocity projectile fired by someone who spent his entire life learning to place shots with millimeter precision. The general stepped forward again, his image filling the screen. You want to know what our primitive bullets can accomplish, Admiral? Come down to our world and find out, but I'll warn you now. Earth has jungles where your advanced sensors won't help you, where the very environment will hide us until we're ready to strike. We have hunters who can track a deer through a forest for days without being detected, and we have snipers who can put a bullet through a target the size of a coin from over a mile away. He smiled then, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. You've conquered civilizations that fought with honor, in open space with comparable technology. You've never faced an enemy that will disappear into the wilderness and hunt you like animals. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge of the Eternal Dominion in uncomfortably silence. Vexithara stared at the blank screen for a long moment before turning to his tactical officer. Begin the invasion. Deploy our ground forces to the major population centers. These humans want to play games with their primitive weapons? We'll show them the price of defying the Empire. But as the orders went out and the invasion preparations began, the Admiral couldn't shake the feeling that he had just made a terrible mistake. Those images of human warfare, the absolute confidence in General Harrison's voice, and something else, something predatory in the way those human soldiers had looked at the camera. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vexithara wondered if he truly understood the enemy he was about to face. The first wave of Imperial dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere like metallic vultures, their energy shields shimmering as they cut through the morning sky. Commander Zektor watched from his command vessel as thousands of his troops prepared for what he expected to be the shortest ground campaign in Imperial history. Sir, we're detecting massive human military movements, reported his sensor operator. They appear to be retreating? Zektor's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Of course they are. They've seen our ships, felt the tremor of our engines. These primitives know they cannot stand against the Empire's might. Below them, the great cities of Earth appeared to be emptying. Highways were clogged with vehicles moving away from urban centers. Military convoys were heading toward mountainous regions and vast stretches of green that the Imperial scouts had identified as forests, primitive ecosystems these humans had somehow failed to properly develop. Sir, should we pursue the fleeing forces? Asked his tactical officer, a heavily armored Korthak warrior whose species had joined the Empire after a brief but decisive war. No need, Zektor replied. Let them run to their wilderness hiding spots. We'll secure the cities first, establish our command centers, then hunt them down at our leisure. How far can primitives with kinetic weapons possibly run? The dropships landed in perfect formation across Earth's major cities. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow. All felt the weight of Imperial boots as thousands of alien soldiers disembarked. Their energy weapons hummed with power, their personal shields glowed with protective force, and their advanced armor turned them into walking tanks. But the cities were empty. Sir, came a confused report from the New York landing zone. There are no humans here. The entire city appears to have been evacuated. Similar reports came in from every landing zone. The humans had simply vanished, leaving behind empty buildings and silent streets. Zektor frowned. In his experience, primitive species either fought hopeless last stands in their cities or surrendered immediately. This mass evacuation was unusual. No matter, he decided. Begin Phase 2. Deploy search and destroy patrols into the surrounding areas. These humans cannot have gone far, and their primitive vehicles will be easy to track. 3 hours later, the first patrol went silent. Delta Squad, report your status, came the urgent call from the communications center. Silence. Gamma Squad, investigate Delta Squad's last known position. 20 minutes passed before Gamma Squad's leader's voice crackled through the comm system. "Command, we found Delta Squad. They're all dead, sir." Zektor's four eyes narrowed. "Elaborate." "Sir, it appears they were killed by kinetic projectiles. Single shots all to vital areas. But sir, there are no signs of a firefight. No return fire, no energy weapon discharge marks, nothing. It's like they were killed by ghosts." The commander's tail lashed in irritation. "Impossible. Our armor can stop their primitive bullets. Conduct a full investigation." But within the hour, 2 more patrols had gone silent. Then 3 more. Each time the investigation teams found the same thing. Imperial soldiers dead from precisely placed shots, with no sign of their attackers. "Sir," his intelligence officer approached cautiously, "we're receiving reports from all landing zones. Every patrol sent into the wooded areas has either been eliminated or has encountered sniper fire from unknown positions. Our forces are requesting permission to retreat to the secure perimeters." Zektor's rage built like a volcano. "Retreat? From primitives with metal bullets? Impossible. Deploy our heavy assault teams. Use the sensor sweeps to locate these snipers." "Sir, that's the problem. Our sensors aren't detecting anything. The thermal imaging is being blocked by the dense vegetation, and the electromagnetic signatures are scattered by the mineral content in the soil. It's like these forests are designed to hide heat signatures." Captain Torval of the 15th Imperial Assault Legion stood at the edge of what the humans called the Amazon rainforest, his advanced helmet filtering through multiple sensor modes. His team of 12 elite soldiers represented the finest warriors the Empire had to offer. Each carried enough firepower to level a city block. Each wore armor that had protected them through campaigns against technologically advanced species. "Spread out," he commanded. Standard search pattern. "These primitive snipers have terrorized our scouts long enough. Time to show them what real soldiers can do." They moved into the green hell with confidence, their sensors scanning for any sign of human presence. The forest was alive with sounds, strange creatures making alien noises, water dripping from massive leaves, the rustling of vegetation in the humid air. "Sir," whispered one of his men, "I'm getting thermal readings everywhere, but they're all animals. Small creatures, insects, some larger mammals. No human-sized signatures. Keep moving," Torval ordered. "They have to be here somewhere." For 2 hours they pushed deeper into the jungle, following game trails and streams. The heat was oppressive even through their climate-controlled suits, and the humidity was making their equipment work harder than usual. Then Private Kexel simply disappeared. One moment he was there, scanning a cluster of massive trees to their left. The next moment there was only silence where his voice should have been on the comm. "Kexel, report," Torval barked. No response. They found his body 30 meters away, dragged behind a fallen log. A single hole pierced his helmet where the armor was thinnest, just below the visor. The shot had been fired from somewhere in the canopy above, but when they looked up, they saw only leaves and shadows. "How is this possible?" whispered Sergeant Vexmar. "Our armor is rated to stop plasma rounds. How did a primitive bullet penetrate it?" Torval examined the wound, his tactical mind racing. The bullet had struck at the perfect angle, hitting the one vulnerable spot in their advanced armor. Not lucky, calculated, professional. A twig snapped somewhere to their right. Every soldier spun toward the sound, weapons raised, sensors scanning. Nothing, just more green shadows and humid air. Then another soldier died. Corporal Zethek was scanning their rear when something punched through his armor just below the neck seal. He dropped without a sound. "There!" someone shouted, pointing at a flash of movement in the distance. They opened fire, energy beams cutting through the forest, setting leaves ablaze and splintering trees. When the destruction cleared, they found nothing but burned vegetation, but they had lost another soldier while they were shooting. Shot through the eye slit of his visor while he was distracted by the firefight. "Fall back," Torval commanded, his confidence finally cracking. "Emergency extraction." But as they tried to retreat, they realized the horrible truth. They were lost. The jungle all looked the same, and their GPS systems were being scrambled by the dense canopy and some kind of electromagnetic interference they hadn't detected before. They wandered for 6 hours, losing another soldier every time they stopped to rest. By the time the extraction team finally located them by following their distress beacon, only 3 of the 12-man squad remained alive. Back at the command center, Zektor stared at the casualty reports with growing disbelief. In 6 hours of ground operations, they had lost over 200 soldiers. Not to massive armies or advanced weapons, but to individual snipers who struck without warning and vanished without a trace. "Sir," his communications officer reported with barely controlled fear, "we're receiving a transmission from the humans." General Harrison's face appeared on the screen again, but this time he was wearing camouflage fatigues instead of his dress uniform. Behind him was a wall of green. He was somewhere in one of those deadly forests. "Commander," Harrison said politely, "I hope your first day on Earth has been educational. You're learning what we tried to explain to your admiral yesterday. You see, you're not fighting an army. You're being hunted." He gestured to the jungle behind him. "There are men out there who have spent their entire lives learning to move through terrain like this without being seen or heard. They know how to read wind patterns, how to calculate bullet drop over extreme distances, how to remain motionless for hours waiting for the perfect shot. They're not soldiers in the way you understand the term. They're predators." The general's expression became serious. "Your armor is impressive, but every piece of equipment has weaknesses. Our hunters have had all day to study your dead, to learn exactly where those weaknesses are. They're sharing that information right now with every sniper team on the planet." Harrison stepped closer to the camera. "You wanted to know what primitive bullets could accomplish against your advanced technology? You're learning, but this is just the beginning. You've only faced our hunters. You haven't met our special forces yet. You haven't encountered our mountain snipers, our urban warfare specialists, or our Arctic survivors." He smiled that same predatory smile from the day before. "You came here expecting to fight a conventional war against an inferior species. Instead, you've walked into the hunting grounds of the most dangerous predators this galaxy has ever produced. Every forest, every mountain range, every swamp and desert on this planet is now a killing field, where we hold every advantage." The transmission ended, leaving Zektor staring at a blank screen while outside his command center, somewhere in the green darkness, the Earth's hunters prepared for another night of silent death. Colonel Thexara of the Imperial Strategic Division had conquered 12 worlds for the Empire. She was known for her brilliant tactical mind and her ability to adapt to any enemy's fighting style. When Admiral Vex Ithara summoned her to Earth to solve the human problem, she had been confident it would take no more than a week. That was 3 weeks ago. Now she stood in the heavily fortified command bunker outside what had once been Chicago, studying holographic displays that showed the devastating reality of Earth's resistance. Red marks indicated Imperial casualties. There were thousands of them. Green marks showed confirmed human positions. There were none. "Report," she commanded to her intelligence chief, a pale, thin creature whose species specialized in pattern analysis. "Colonel, the situation continues to deteriorate. We've lost 732 soldiers in the past 72 hours alone. The humans appear to be operating in small teams of 2 to 4 individuals. They strike without warning, eliminate their targets with surgical precision, then vanish completely." Thexara's claws clicked against the metal table. "What about our countermeasures? The motion sensors, the thermal imaging networks, the aerial patrols? All ineffective, ma'am. The humans seem to move through the terrain without triggering our detection systems. Our thermal imaging picks up hundreds of heat signatures in any forested area, but 99% are local wildlife. By the time we investigate each one, the humans have moved to new positions." She turned to her tactical display, which showed the current deployment of Imperial forces. They controlled the major cities, but those were empty shells. All essential infrastructure had been disabled before the humans retreated. The real war was happening in the vast wilderness areas that covered most of the planet's surface. "What about our air superiority? We have 500 attack craft. Why aren't we using them to flush out these snipers?" Her aviation commander, an insectoid warrior with multiple compound eyes, buzzed his response. "Colonel, we've tried. The forest canopy is too dense for effective targeting. When we do spot possible human positions and attack them, investigation shows we've only destroyed empty forest. The humans seem to know we're coming long before we arrive. That's impossible. Our ships operate with complete electronic silence until the moment of attack." "Yes, ma'am, but..." The commander hesitated. "We believe the humans may be using some form of primitive early warning system we don't understand. Our intelligence suggests they have individuals positioned throughout the forest whose only job is to watch for our aircraft and warn their sniper teams." Thexara felt a chill run down her spine. "You mean they have a planet-wide surveillance network using nothing but lookouts?" "It appears so, Colonel. They're using their own people as sensors. positioned in camouflaged hides throughout their territory. When one of our aircraft approaches, they pass signals through a chain of observers until every sniper team in the area knows we're coming. The colonel stared at the tactical display, trying to comprehend the implications. The Empire's military doctrine was based on technological superiority, better weapons, better armor, better sensors. They had never encountered an enemy that simply ignored technological warfare and relied on pure fieldcraft and human intelligence. Colonel, another officer interrupted urgently. We're receiving reports from Patrol Group 7. They've encountered something new. Captain Veltar's voice crackled through the communication system. Tension clear even through the electronic distortion. Command, this is 7 Alpha. We are under attack by unknown forces. These aren't the snipers we've been dealing with. Elaborate. 7 Alpha, Texera commanded. Ma'am, we were moving through a valley north of our last position when we came under coordinated fire from multiple positions. But these humans aren't using long-range weapons. They're using some kind of explosive devices and automatic projectile weapons. The sound of gunfire echoed through the comm system, followed by explosions. 7 Alpha, what's your status? We're pinned down, ma'am. These humans are moving through the terrain like nothing I've ever seen. They appear from nowhere, attack with overwhelming force, then disappear before we can return effective fire. It's like fighting shadows that can throw lightning. Through the static and chaos, they could hear Veltar shouting orders to his troops. Watch the ridge line. They're flanking us through the... How did they get behind us so fast? The transmission dissolved into weapon fire and screaming, then cut to silence. Send a recovery team immediately, Texara ordered, but she already knew what they would find. 2 hours later, the recovery team reported their findings. Patrol Group 7 had been completely eliminated, but the scene was different from the sniper attacks. This had been a coordinated assault by what appeared to be a larger force using tactics the Empire had never encountered. Colonel, the recovery team leader reported, the humans set up an ambush in a narrow valley. They used concealed explosive devices to disable our vehicles, then attacked from elevated positions on both sides. But ma'am, the most disturbing thing is how they moved. Our soldiers' helmet cameras show humans appearing and disappearing like ghosts. They seem to know this terrain better than we know our own ships. That night, as Texara reviewed the footage from the helmet cameras, she began to understand the true scope of the problem they faced. The humans moved through their environment with an ease that seemed almost supernatural. They flowed around obstacles, used every shadow and depression for concealment, and appeared to communicate without any electronic devices the Empire could detect. More disturbing were the weapons they carried. While still primitive by Imperial standards, they were being used with a level of expertise that turned simple kinetic projectiles into instruments of terrifying precision. She watched in fascination and horror as a human soldier fired a single shot that ricocheted off 2 rocks before striking an Imperial trooper, in the only gap in his armor. Analysis, she demanded from her weapons expert. Colonel, these humans appear to understand the physics of projectile warfare, to a degree we never anticipated. They're calculating angles, distances, and environmental factors in their heads faster than our computers can process the same information. That ricochet shot we just watched required calculations involving wind speed, humidity, the density of the rock surfaces, and at least 7 different angles. The human made those calculations in approximately 3 seconds and executed a perfect shot. Texara realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in the Empire's military history. These weren't primitive warriors using crude weapons. They were master craftsmen who had perfected their art over millennia of constant warfare. The next morning brought worse news. 3 more patrols had been eliminated during the night, but now there were reports of something that chilled the colonel to her core. Ma'am, her intelligence chief reported, our perimeter sensors detected movement around our base last night. Multiple human contacts approached within 50 meters of our outer defenses. What? That's impossible. Our energy barriers would have vaporized anything that came that close. Yes, ma'am, but the humans didn't try to breach the barriers. They just watched us. Our sensors tracked them for approximately 6 hours. They positioned themselves in observation points all around our base, then withdrew before dawn. The implications hit Texara like a physical blow. The humans had spent an entire night studying their defenses, learning their patrol patterns, identifying weaknesses. They weren't just fighting a guerrilla war. They were conducting intelligence, gathering operations with a sophistication that rivaled The Empire's own special forces. Colonel, another officer approached with visible fear. We've intercepted human communications. Our translation computers have been working on their language patterns. What did they say? Ma'am, it was a conversation between two of their field commanders. They were discussing our troop movements, our equipment capabilities, and... He paused, his alien features showing clear distress. And what? They were discussing which of our officers to target first for maximum psychological impact. They know our names, Colonel. They know our ranks, our specialties, our individual command styles. They've been studying us as closely as we've been trying to study them. Texara felt something she had never experienced in her military career, the cold touch of genuine fear. These humans weren't just defending their world. They were hunting the hunters. The Empire's forces had become prey in a game whose rules they didn't understand. Played by creatures who had mastered the art of warfare in ways the galaxy had never seen. Outside the bunker, in the darkness beyond their energy barriers, the Earth's hunters continued their patient work. They were learning everything about their enemy, strengths, weaknesses, habits, fears. And soon, very soon, they would begin the next phase of their campaign. The Empire had wanted to see what primitive bullets could accomplish against advanced technology. They were about to learn that the most dangerous weapon wasn't the bullet, it was the mind that aimed it. Master Sergeant Elena Vasquez lay motionless in her hide for the fourth consecutive hour, her sniper rifle trained on the Imperial command post 3 kilometers away. Through her scope, she could see the alien officers moving behind their energy barriers, believing themselves safe from the primitive weapons of Earth. They were wrong. Elena had been hunting since she was 8 years old, tracking deer through the mountains of Colorado with her grandfather. She had learned patience in the forests of Montana, precision in the deserts of Afghanistan, and the art of invisible movement in the jungles of Southeast Asia. She was one of Earth's finest military snipers, and she had been waiting for this shot for 6 days. Her spotter, Corporal James Mitchell, lay beside her in their carefully constructed hide. They had built it slowly over 3 days, using local vegetation and materials scavenged from the battlefield. To any observer, including the aliens' advanced sensors, it appeared to be nothing more than a fallen log covered in moss and leaves. Target acquired. Elena whispered into her throat mic. Imperial Colonel, main command bunker, range 3,100 meters. Wind? Mitchell asked, checking his instruments. Cross breeze 8 kilometers per hour northeast to southwest. Temperature 22 degrees. Humidity 73%. Elena made minute adjustments to her scope. Target is stationary, reviewing tactical displays. This wasn't just about eliminating an enemy officer. This was about sending a message that would echo through the entire Imperial fleet. The aliens thought their energy barriers made them untouchable. Elena was about to prove them wrong. She controlled her breathing, feeling her heartbeat slow to the steady rhythm she had perfected over 15 years of military service. The rifle was a thing of beauty, a custom .338 Lapua Magnum with a barrel crafted by the finest weaponsmiths on Earth. In the hands of a master, it could place a bullet with surgical precision at distances that would make alien weapons officers weep. Shot on the way, she whispered, and squeezed the trigger. The bullet left the barrel at over 900 meters per second, its trajectory calculated to account for wind, gravity, humidity, and the rotation of the Earth itself. Elena had spent days studying the alien energy barriers, learning their frequencies and patterns. She had discovered something the Imperial engineers had overlooked. Their barriers were designed to stop energy weapons and explosive devices. But they had a brief cycle refresh period every 17 seconds. The bullet arrived exactly as the barrier flickered during its refresh cycle. It punched through the momentary gap and struck Colonel Texara in the center of her thorax, dropping her instantly. The effect on the Imperial forces was immediate and devastating. Command is down. Command is down! The frantic calls echoed across their communication networks. The humans have breached our barriers. How is this possible? Panic spread through the alien ranks like wildfire. If their energy barriers couldn't protect them, nowhere was safe. Officers who had felt invulnerable suddenly realized they were as exposed as their frontline troops. But Elena's shot was only the beginning. Across the planet, similar scenarios were playing out as Earth's most skilled snipers demonstrated capabilities that defied Imperial understanding. In the mountains of Tibet, Former Olympic biathlete turned military sniper Anna Petrov eliminated 3 Imperial officers with 3 shots in as many seconds, each from a different position, making it appear that an entire sniper team was operating where only one woman lay hidden. In the Amazon, Carlos Mendoza, an indigenous hunter who had learned his skills tracking jaguars through the dense rainforest, used traditional camouflage techniques to get within 50 meters of an Imperial patrol. His single shot eliminated their leader, and before they could react, he had vanished into vegetation so thick that their sensors registered him as part of the forest itself. The psychological warfare was just as devastating as the physical casualties. Imperial troops began refusing to leave their fortified positions. Officers stopped appearing in areas visible from outside their bases. The entire invasion force was beginning to suffer from what military psychologists call sniper paranoia, the constant fear that death could strike from any direction at any moment. Admiral Vexathara stood in the bridge of his flagship, studying reports that made no sense according to everything he knew about warfare. The humans were operating with a level of coordination that seemed impossible for such a primitive species. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we've identified at least 47 separate sniper teams operating across the northern hemisphere alone. But sir, the disturbing thing is how they're coordinating their attacks." "Explain." "They appear to be using some form of communication system we cannot detect or jam. When one team strikes, others adjust their positions to take advantage of our response patterns. It's as if they can see our entire tactical picture in real time." The Admiral's confidence was cracking. What kind of communication system could possibly evade our electronic warfare capabilities? "Sir, we believe they're using organic messengers. Humans on foot, carrying information between teams. No electronic signatures, no energy patterns we can trace, just people moving through terrain our sensors can't effectively monitor." Vexathara stared at the tactical display showing the disposition of his forces. Red markers indicated Imperial casualties, and there were hundreds of them. But what terrified him most were the question marks scattered across the map. Unconfirmed human positions that could be anywhere, everywhere or nowhere. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted. "Incoming transmission from the planet's surface." General Harrison appeared on the screen again, but this time he was in what appeared to be a command center carved into a mountain. Behind him, Vexathara could see sophisticated maps and communication equipment. The humans had built a military infrastructure completely invisible to Imperial sensors. "Admiral," Harrison said with that same calm confidence, "I trust you've noticed the recent changes in our tactical approach. Your forces are learning what it means to be hunted by experts." He gestured to the maps behind him. "You see, we've been studying you very carefully. We know how you think, how you react, how you organize your forces. Your military doctrine is based on technological superiority and overwhelming firepower. You've never faced an enemy that simply refuses to fight on your terms." Harrison stepped closer to the camera. "You're experiencing something no Imperial force has ever encountered. Asymmetric warfare at its most refined. We're not trying to match your technology or your numbers. We're using skills that took our species millennia to develop. Patience, fieldcraft, marksmanship, and most importantly, the ability to think like hunters rather than soldiers." The general's expression became almost sympathetic. "Your troops are brave, Admiral, but they're terrified. They don't understand an enemy they can't see, can't predict, and can't counter with their superior weapons. Every shadow might hide death. Every forest could contain dozens of snipers. Every hill could have a hunter waiting for the perfect shot." Behind Harrison, other figures moved in the shadows. Humans in camouflage uniforms, their faces painted with patterns that made them nearly invisible even in good lighting. They moved with the fluid grace of natural predators, and their eyes held the patience of creatures who could wait motionless for hours for their prey to make a mistake. "You wanted to see what primitive bullets could accomplish, Admiral. Now you know. But this is still just the beginning. So far you've only faced our snipers and scouts. Our special forces units haven't even engaged yet. Our mountain warfare specialists, our Arctic survival experts, our urban combat teams. They're all still waiting for their turn." Harrison's smile was no longer predatory. It was the expression of a teacher explaining a lesson to a slow student. "You came here expecting to fight a conventional war against an inferior species. Instead, you've discovered that Earth's most dangerous export isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our warriors. Humans who have spent their entire evolution learning to kill with tools so simple you dismissed them as primitive. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Eternal Dominion in silence. Outside in the darkness of space, the massive Imperial fleet maintained its orbit around Earth. But below them, in every forest and mountain range, every swamp and desert, the planet's hunters continued their patient work. They were teaching the galaxy's most powerful empire a lesson in humility, one precisely placed bullet at a time. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Ghost Morrison had earned her nickname during 12 years of special operations in environments that would kill most soldiers within hours. She had survived Arctic warfare in Alaska, desert operations in the Middle East, and jungle campaigns in South America. Now, as she crouched in the ventilation system of an Imperial supply depot, she was about to demonstrate why Earth's special forces were considered the deadliest hunters in human history. The aliens had made a critical error. They had established their main supply depot in what used to be an underground shopping complex in Denver, believing that the concrete and steel structure would protect them from sniper fire. They were right about the snipers, but they had never considered that humans might simply walk through their defenses. Sarah's team of 12 operators had spent 2 weeks infiltrating the facility. They moved through abandoned subway tunnels, maintenance shafts, and storm drains that the Imperial forces didn't even know existed. The alien sensors were designed to detect threats from above ground, not from the hidden infrastructure that lay beneath every human city. "Ghost team in position," she whispered into her throat mic. All packages placed. Behind her, the other members of her unit confirmed their readiness. They had positioned shaped charges at critical structural points throughout the facility, and each operator had identified their targets among the Imperial supply personnel. In 30 seconds, the aliens would learn that their underground fortress was actually a tomb. "Execute," Sarah commanded. The explosions came first, carefully calculated charges that collapsed specific sections of the facility, while leaving others intact. The aliens inside found themselves trapped in a maze of debris and darkness, their advanced equipment useless in the chaos. Then came the hunters. Sarah's team moved through the facility like deadly phantoms, their night vision goggles turning the darkness into a hunting ground where they held every advantage. They had trained for urban warfare in environments just like this, learning to navigate through rubble and confusion while maintaining perfect situational awareness. The Imperial soldiers, meanwhile, were experiencing their worst nightmare. Their energy weapons were useless in close quarters, where human operators could appear from any direction. Their armor, designed to protect against plasma fire, was vulnerable to point-blank shots from human assault weapons. Most terrifying of all, their advanced sensors couldn't distinguish between falling debris and approaching enemies. "Contact front," an alien voice screamed over their communication network. "Humans in the storage bay. How did they get past our perimeters?" But there was no answer because the communications center had been Sarah's first target. The operators who had been monitoring Imperial radio traffic were now dead, their sophisticated equipment reduced to sparking wreckage. Captain Rexfall of the Imperial Supply Corps found himself trapped in a storage bay filled with energy weapon power cells and medical supplies. He clutched his plasma rifle with forearms that trembled with fear. Around him, the sounds of battle echoed through the damaged facility, screams of pain, the crack of human kinetic weapons, and most terrifying of all, the sound of silence when another Imperial soldier stopped responding to radio calls. A shadow moved in the doorway. Rexeval spun toward it, firing his plasma rifle at full power. The energy beam illuminated a section of empty corridor, revealing nothing but concrete walls and scattered debris. Then something cold pressed against the back of his neck. "Drop your weapon," a female voice said in accented but understandable Imperial standard. Slowly, Rexfall's rifle clattered to the floor. He had never heard a human speak their language before, and the casual fluency was somehow more terrifying than threats would have been. "Turn around. Keep your hands visible." He turned to face a human female in dark camouflage clothing, her face painted with patterns that had made her nearly invisible even at close range. She held a compact kinetic weapon aimed at his center mass, and her eyes held the cold professionalism of a natural predator. "You're going to answer some questions," Sarah Morrison said, switching back to English while activating a translation device. "Imperial troop deployments, command structure, reinforcement schedules. You can provide this information voluntarily, or my medic can make you very uncomfortable while we extract it. Rexeval had been trained to resist interrogation, but his training had never covered being captured by humans who moved like ghosts and struck like lightning. Around him, the facility had gone almost completely silent, only the sound of his own rapid breathing and the distant crackling of damaged equipment. The other storage facilities? He found himself saying. Are they? Oh yes, Sarah replied. We hit all 7 simultaneously. Your supply network on this continent just ceased to exist. Across the planet, similar operations were unfolding. Human Special Forces teams were demonstrating capabilities that the Imperial military had never imagined possible. In Moscow, a team of former Spetsnaz operators infiltrated an Imperial command center through the city's ancient underground tunnels, emerging inside the facility's secure perimeter like wraiths from the Earth itself. In Tokyo, Japanese self-defense force specialists used traditional ninja techniques combined with modern warfare training to eliminate an entire Imperial intelligence station without triggering a single alarm. The aliens were found dead at their post the next morning, killed so quietly that their colleagues in the next room never knew an attack was happening. In London, British SAS operators conducted a precision raid on an Imperial research facility where alien scientists were studying captured human weapons. The soldiers moved through the building like ghosts, leaving behind nothing but empty laboratories and terrified researchers who could only babble about humans who appeared from nowhere and vanished like smoke. The psychological impact on Imperial forces was catastrophic. Admiral Vexthera reviewed the reports with growing horror. In a single night, humans had simultaneously attacked and destroyed 43 Imperial facilities across 6 continents. The coordination required for such an operation suggested military capabilities far beyond what the Empire's intelligence had indicated. How is this possible? He demanded of his surviving officers. These attacks were perfectly synchronized across multiple time zones. The humans would need instantaneous communication across their entire planet. Sir, his intelligence chief reported with barely controlled panic, we believe the humans have been planning these operations for weeks. They appear to have a command structure that operates completely independently of any technology we can detect or disrupt. Independent command structure? Sir, they seem to use human messengers and preset timing to coordinate their operations. No radio communications, no electronic signals, nothing we can intercept or jam. They plan their attacks using nothing but paper maps and face-to-face meetings, then execute them with precision that rivals our most advanced tactical computers. Vexthera felt his confidence crumbling like ancient stone. The Empire had conquered the galaxy using technological superiority, overwhelming firepower, and advanced tactical systems. They had never encountered an enemy that simply ignored technology entirely and relied on pure military skill. Sir, another officer interrupted, we're receiving another transmission from the human leadership. General Harrison appeared on the screen, but this time he was standing in what appeared to be an Imperial supply depot. Behind him, human soldiers were calmly inventorying captured alien equipment while Imperial prisoners sat under guard. Admiral, Harrison said, I hope tonight's operations have been educational. You've now experienced what we call direct action. Precision strikes designed to eliminate specific targets with minimal collateral damage. He gestured to the captured facility around him. Your forces have been operating under the assumption that superior technology guarantees victory. You built your strategy around energy barriers, advanced sensors, and overwhelming firepower. But you forgot the most important element of warfare, the human factor. Harrison picked up an Imperial plasma rifle from a nearby table, examining it with professional interest. This is an impressive weapon, Admiral. More advanced than anything we can manufacture. But it's operated by soldiers who have never learned to fight without technological advantages. They've never developed the fieldcraft, the patience, or the creativity that comes from thousands of years of warfare with primitive tools. He set the weapon down and looked directly into the camera. Your troops are brave, but they're not hunters. They're technicians operating sophisticated equipment. When that equipment fails them, when their sensors can't detect us and their weapons can't reach us, they're helpless. Behind Harrison, a human soldier demonstrated the point by field stripping an Imperial energy weapon in seconds, his hands moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who understood the mechanical principles behind the technology. You came here expecting to fight a conventional, War against an inferior civilization, Harrison continued. Instead, you've walked into the hunting grounds of the most dangerous predators the galaxy has ever produced. We've been perfecting the art of killing for 50,000 years, Admiral. We've learned to hunt every creature on this planet, including each other. General Michael Iron Wolf Patterson stood on the ridge overlooking the Imperial staging area near Frankfurt, watching through binoculars as alien forces prepared for what they believed would be a final push to establish permanent control over Europe. The aliens had consolidated their remaining forces into heavily fortified positions, surrounding themselves with energy barriers and automated defense systems. They felt safe behind their technological shields. They were about to learn why Earth's conventional military forces were the most feared fighters in human history. All units. This is Iron Wolf. Patterson spoke into his radio. Operation Thunderstrike is now active. Execute Phase 1. Below him, the first phase began with a sound that had terrified armies for over a century, the deep rumbling thunder of artillery fire. But these weren't the primitive guns the aliens expected. These were advanced electromagnetic railguns and guided munition systems that Earth's military had perfected during their own technological development. The first shells struck the Imperial perimeter with precision that stunned the alien defenders. Each round had been calculated to exploit specific weaknesses in their energy barrier systems, weaknesses that Earth's best military engineers had identified through weeks of careful observation. "Sir," an Imperial communications officer shouted over the sound of explosions. "We're under bombardment from long-range artillery. But sir, their targeting accuracy is impossible. They're hitting our shield generators with meter precision from 30 kilometers away." Commander Theknall, the surviving senior officer of the European Imperial Forces, watched in horror as his carefully constructed defenses began to collapse under the withering fire. "How are they calculating firing solutions with such accuracy? Our position was supposed to be hidden." What Theknall didn't know was that for 3 weeks, human forward observers had been infiltrating positions around every Imperial stronghold on the planet. These soldiers, trained in the ancient art of calling in artillery strikes, had been mapping every building, every vehicle, every important target within the alien perimeters. When the conventional attack began, they were ready to guide each shell with lethal precision. Phase 2. Execute, Patterson commanded. The artillery barrage suddenly stopped, leaving an ominous silence that lasted exactly 30 seconds. Then the sky filled with the sound of approaching aircraft. But these weren't the clumsy, obvious attack craft the aliens had encountered before. Earth's Air Force had learned from watching Imperial tactics, and they approached using terrain-following flight patterns that kept them below radar until the last possible moment. F-35 Lightning fighters, upgraded with electromagnetic pulse weapons, swept in from multiple directions simultaneously. "Air attack incoming," Theknall screamed into his communicator. "Deploy interceptors immediately." But as Imperial aircraft launched to meet the threat, they discovered something that chilled their pilots to their cores. The human pilots flew with a skill that defied explanation. They used every mountain, every valley, every cloud formation as cover. They attacked in coordinated waves that exploited gaps in Imperial formations with surgical precision. Captain Lisa Viper Rodriguez pulled her F-35 into a vertical climb that would have been impossible for most species, using the aircraft's thrust vectoring to dance around Imperial energy beams like a leaf in the wind. Behind her, her wingman executed a textbook split-S maneuver that brought him onto the tail of an Imperial fighter, whose pilot was still trying to understand how humans could fly with such impossible skill. Fox 3, Rodriguez called as she launched a missile at an Imperial bomber. The missile, guided by targeting data from ground-based spotters, struck its target with the precision of a sniper's bullet. But the air battle was just a distraction. The real attack was coming from the ground. Phase 3. Execute, Patterson commanded. From concealed positions around the Imperial perimeter, camouflaged hatches suddenly opened, revealing the barrels of human main battle tanks. But these weren't sitting targets waiting to be destroyed by alien weapons. These were Abrams and Leopard tanks that had been positioned days earlier, their crews living underground in conditions that would have broken most alien soldiers. The tank crews had learned something crucial about Imperial energy weapons. They were designed to stop fast-moving projectiles and energy beams, but they struggled with the massive kinetic energy of a 120mm depleted uranium tank round, traveling at over a mile per second. The first volley from the hidden tank positions punched through, Imperial energy shields like they were made of paper. The aliens had never encountered weapons that combined such massive physical force with precision targeting systems operated by crews who had trained for years to hit moving targets at extreme range. Impossible, Technol cried as he watched his command center's shields fail under the bombardment. Their primitive kinetic weapons cannot penetrate our barriers. But they could, and they were. Human military engineers had spent weeks analyzing captured Imperial technology, learning that the alien energy shields operated on specific frequencies designed to counter energy weapons and explosives. No one in the Empire had ever considered that an enemy might use pure kinetic force delivered with such overwhelming power. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with barely controlled panic, "the humans have deployed armored units from concealed positions all around our perimeter. Our defensive calculations assumed they would attack from predicted approach routes, but they're already inside our defensive range." Technol realized with growing horror that the humans had been preparing for this moment since the first day of the invasion. While his forces had been hunting snipers and special forces teams, human engineering units had been preparing the battlefield, positioning heavy weapons and armored vehicles in locations that Imperial scouts had never detected. Phase 4. Execute. Patterson's voice echoed across the battlefield. The final phase was the most devastating of all. Human infantry units, supported by the tank assault and protected by ongoing artillery fire, began their advance on the Imperial positions. But these weren't the irregular guerrilla fighters the aliens had been facing. These were professional soldiers, trained in combined arms warfare and equipped with weapon systems that had been perfected through decades of human conflict. Sergeant First Class Marcus Washington led his squad in a textbook infantry assault that would have made military historians weep with admiration. His soldiers moved with practiced precision, using fire and maneuver tactics that allowed them to advance under cover while maintaining constant pressure on the alien defenders. "Covering fire," Washington shouted as his automatic weapons teams established overwatch positions. The sustained fire from their weapons kept Imperial soldiers pinned down while other squad members advanced to new positions. But what truly terrified the alien defenders was the seamless coordination between different human military units. Artillery fire adjusted continuously to support infantry advances. Tank crews provided cover for soldiers while receiving targeting information from forward observers. Air support arrived at precisely the right moments to suppress alien counterattacks. The Imperial forces, trained to fight as individual units with technological superiority, had never encountered an enemy that combined all their military assets into a single, coordinated fighting machine. "Sir," Technol's communications officer reported with despair, "we're receiving similar reports from every Imperial position on the planet. The humans have launched simultaneous coordinated attacks against all our remaining strongholds." Simultaneous? Technol couldn't believe what he was hearing. That would require coordination across multiple continents, perfect timing, and he trailed off as the implications hit him. The humans had been planning this operation for weeks, possibly since the moment of first contact. While the Empire's forces had been reacting to sniper attacks and special operations raids, human military planners had been preparing a conventional war campaign with the precision of a clockwork mechanism. Through the smoke and fire of the collapsing Imperial perimeter, human soldiers advanced with the grim professionalism of warriors who had perfected their craft through generations of warfare. They moved like a single organism, each unit supporting the others, each soldier knowing exactly what role they played in the larger battle. As Imperial defenses crumbled under the coordinated assault, Technol finally understood the true scope of their mistake. The Empire had assumed that technological superiority would guarantee victory against a primitive species. They had never considered that warfare itself was a technology, and that humans had been refining it for thousands of years. The snipers, the special forces, the guerrilla tactics, all of it had been preparation for this moment. The humans had used irregular warfare to weaken Imperial forces, gather intelligence, and prepare the battlefield for conventional military operations that the Empire was completely unprepared to face. As human tanks rolled through the shattered remains of his command post, Technol realized that the galaxy's most powerful empire had just been defeated by creatures whose greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their absolute mastery of the art of war itself. Admiral Vexathera stood alone on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, staring at tactical displays that told a story of complete defeat. In 72 hours, the Empire's invasion force had been systematically destroyed by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. Of the 500,000 Imperial troops that had landed on Earth, fewer than 50,000 remained, most of them wounded or trapped in surrounded positions. The communication console chimed with an incoming message. General Harrison's face appeared on the screen, but this time he stood in what was clearly an Imperial command center. Behind him, human soldiers were efficiently processing alien equipment while Imperial prisoners sat under guard. "Admiral," Harrison said, his voice carrying the quiet satisfaction of a teacher whose student had finally learned an important lesson, "I believe it's time we discuss terms." Vexithara's 4 eyes burned with rage and humiliation. "Terms? You dare to dictate terms to the Galactic Empire?" "I'm not dictating anything," Harrison replied calmly. "I'm offering you the opportunity to save what's left of your forces. Your ground troops are defeated, your supply lines are cut, and your forward bases have been eliminated. You can continue this conflict and watch the rest of your soldiers die, or you can acknowledge reality." The Admiral's claws clicked against the metal railing as he struggled to control his fury. "The Empire will send more fleets, larger forces. We will return with weapons that will turn your planet to glass." Harrison nodded thoughtfully. "You could try that. But Admiral, let me explain what you would actually accomplish." He gestured to someone off-screen, and the view expanded to show a massive chamber filled with captured Imperial technology and weapons. "In the past month, we've captured and reverse-engineered most of your military technology. Our engineers are already developing countermeasures for your energy weapons, improvements to your shield systems, and upgrades to your spacecraft designs. If you return with more ships, you'll be facing an enemy that knows all your capabilities and has had time to prepare specific defenses against them." The camera panned across workbenches where human technicians worked calmly, disassembling alien weapons with the methodical precision of master craftsmen. "But more importantly, Admiral, you'll be facing an enemy that has learned your tactics, studied your psychology, and developed strategies specifically designed to exploit your weaknesses." Harrison stepped closer to the camera. "You came here believing that technological superiority was the key to victory. You've learned that the most advanced weapon in the universe is useless if the person wielding it doesn't understand warfare itself. We've been studying conflict for thousands of years, Admiral. Every strategy you might employ we've already encountered and defeated." Behind him, a human officer approached and whispered something in his ear. Harrison nodded and turned back to the camera. "I'm informed that your remaining ground forces have agreed to surrender in exchange for safe passage off our planet. Your surviving officers have been quite cooperative once they understood that resistance was futile." Vexithara felt his legs weaken. The Empire's military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and technological superiority. No species had ever forced Imperial troops to surrender. The political implications of this defeat would echo through the Empire for centuries. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Simple," Harrison replied. "Complete withdrawal of all Imperial forces from our solar system. Recognition of Earth as an independent world with full sovereignty over our territory. And most importantly, a guarantee that the Empire will never again attempt to conquer or colonize our world." The Admiral's tactical mind raced through possibilities. The Empire could agree to these terms and return later with overwhelming force. They could deploy planet-killing weapons from a safe distance. They could... "Admiral," Harrison continued as if reading his thoughts, "I should mention that we've also captured several of your faster-than-light communication devices. We've been studying your language, your culture, and your political structure. We know that news of this defeat will spread through your empire within days." The implications hit Vexithara like a physical blow. Every species in the galaxy would learn that the mighty Galactic Empire had been defeated by a single primitive world. The political ramifications would be catastrophic. "Other worlds will see what happened here," Harrison said with calm certainty. "They'll learn that the Empire's forces can be defeated by superior tactics and military skill. More importantly, they'll learn that technological superiority means nothing against an enemy that truly understands warfare." He gestured to his soldiers, who continued their work with professional efficiency. "You're looking at the finest military force the galaxy has ever produced, Admiral. We've spent 50,000 years perfecting the art of war. We've fought in every environment our planet offers, against every conceivable enemy with every possible weapon. We've learned to kill with sticks and stones, with swords and spears, with gunpowder and guided missiles. Harrison's expression became serious. The Empire conquered other worlds because they fought conventionally, using similar tactics and comparable technology. But Earth doesn't fight conventionally. We fight to win, using whatever advantages we can find. We study our enemies, exploit their weaknesses, and adapt our tactics to defeat whatever force they deploy against us. The general stepped back, and the camera showed the full scope of the captured Imperial facility. Human engineers were already beginning to integrate alien technology with their own systems, creating hybrid weapons that combined Imperial power with human ingenuity. You can take this lesson back to your Empire, Admiral. Tell them that Earth is not a world to be conquered. We're a world of hunters, warriors, and survivors who have spent our entire evolution learning to kill anything that threatens us. Tell them that our bullets may be primitive, but the minds that aim them are the most dangerous weapons in the galaxy. Harrison paused, his voice becoming almost gentle. Or you can try to return with a larger fleet, and we'll teach the galaxy another lesson about what happens when you underestimate Earth's warriors. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Eternal Dominion in stunned silence. Around the planet below, the remaining Imperial forces were beginning their evacuation under human supervision. The invasion that was supposed to last days had ended in complete defeat. 3 hours later, the last Imperial transport lifted off from Earth's surface. Admiral Vexithara watched from his flagship as the blue planet fell away below them, knowing that he was carrying news that would change the galaxy forever. In the months that followed, word of Earth's victory spread through the Empire like wildfire. The idea that a primitive species could defeat Imperial forces using nothing but superior tactics and ancient weapons sent shockwaves through every conquered world. Rebellions began to spark across the galaxy as subjugated species realized that the Empire's technological advantages could be overcome by skilled warriors who understood the true nature of warfare. The Galactic Empire's expansion came to a halt as they were forced to deal with uprisings on dozens of worlds. Military commanders who had once been confident in their technological superiority now found themselves facing enemies who had studied Earth's tactics and learned to fight like humans. And on Earth itself, the planet's warriors returned to their forests and mountains and cities, knowing that they had taught the galaxy a lesson that would never be forgotten. They had proven that the most dangerous predator in the universe wasn't the one with the most advanced weapons. It was the one that had spent millions of years learning to hunt. The Empire had come to Earth, expecting to find primitive creatures armed with crude tools. Instead, they had discovered humanity, a species that had turned warfare itself into an art form, and who would defend their world with a skill and ferocity that no technological advantage could overcome. The hunters of Earth had spoken, and their message echoed across the stars. Underestimate humanity at your own peril.